Hey guys, today I'm going to be reading, I haven't made a video in a long time. It's been about, quite a few months. So I decided just to sit down. I got this new mic for Christmas. It's a Wave 3. Really, really cool. I may or may not put the link in the description on where to find it, but it is a really, really good mic. Honestly, there's been a lot happening. Right, just over the entire path. It's really been a lot to just kind of sit down and have the right equipment and to have the right state of mind to actually start just like pick up a book and begin recording it. I found this book over, I believe it was spring or Thanksgiving break. It's called Dangerous Personalities. It's basically what it says is an FBI profiler shows you how to identify and protect yourself from harmful people. I was thinking it would be good to read. Like nowadays, we have a lot of crazy people who do crazy things and really puts our lives in like chaos. So I was thinking, hey, this would be a good book to start off. One, to test this mic because I honestly love it, and two, to just get to know you. Some of the stuff in the it's been a while since I've read it, so I'm thinking about just putting the rough copy in the channel, or I'm just gonna tweak it, which I am a little bit lazy to do, to my fatal flaw. Um, so it's the book's by Joe Navarro. He's an FBI profiler. I should probably read the everything. Just I'll put the everything like that needed to so I won't get sued into the description because I'm not sure if what I'm doing is legal. I believe it is because we have other people going around putting this stuff on, but I'm not sure if that's the right thing either. But I feel like if I give the person credit, um, and put in all the needed information, then I think we're gonna be a okay. Um, what else? What else? What else? It has been a while, but yet again, it has been uh so long, and I'm jumping back and forth from topic to topic. I'm going back to the book, but honestly, with the book, I haven't read it in forever, so it's gonna be a very very choppy recording. So I'm not making it to perfection. I'm just making it for my own enjoyment. Like sheer, I don't want to get paid. I don't want to get. I don't want to just like. How would I put this? I don't want. This is not like my job. My job is to just be me. To I don't know. I'm rambling. Um. Well, without further ado, you're gonna hear a lot more of my voice cutting in and out of this thing. So some like random commentary and such. They, I don't know how in depth this book will go onto it. So I'm assuming that there might be some touchy stuff here and there that people who are listening to this would be like, oh yeah, really that's really relatable, or yeah, I've been through that and it hurts. And hopefully I won't actually we won't get there. But if that's so, let that be a disclaimer that yes, this will cover some very touchy subjects about different scenarios and what everything has to not what everything is, what what goes on in your life, because there are some helplines out there that who can help you with those situations. But this, the last time I read, I never got through it. But from what I've read, it is a really, really good book, and I am really excited to share it with you. So, This book is dedicated to the victims of these dangerous personalities. That scarier makes it what makes it scarier. We witness every day, and sometimes as a society we just kind of brush it off and continue going like nothing really happened. So, um, I think I will do. I will read the author's. I will go like straight through, starting with the author's note, and then everything that needs to get through. I will butcher words. I unintentionally butcher a pronunciation, so I really don't need the. Oh yeah, it was pronounced this way because I will later on look at it in a dictionary or look up the how to pronounce a word. So, without further ado, without my pointless rambling, let's get into this book, Dangerous Personalities by Joe Navarro. Okay, author's note. This book is intended to inform the reader or to validate what the reader may have witnessed or experienced. It is not intended as a clinical guide and should not replace the services of a trained or licensed professional. Whenever I talk to victims, I am keenly aware of what they have suffered and the need to protect their privacy and dignity. And so I have changed the names of all the victims I have interviewed. To further protect them, I altered slightly the details of events, dates, time, and location because some police reports and divorce filings are now searchable by specific words or groups of words. In the end, I have done my best to protect the victims without losing the character or manner to the offense and what they endured. Acknowledgments. Anytime you undertake an intellectual journey, there are so many people to thank. The bibliography is full of such individuals who took the time to share what they know. They have my deepest appreciation. The late Dr. Phil Quinn, who persuaded me to join the adjunct facility at the University of Tampa's criminology department, served as a mentor for more than a decade as I studied and explored these individuals. And as I, whoa, served as a mentor for more than a decade as I studied and explored these individuals' flawed of character or personality. To me, his perspective as a humanitarian, priest, psychologist, and criminologist was indeed unique and contributed significantly to my understanding of a complex subject. Michael Yavetz of the Sûreté de Quebec and fellow author has always honored me with his friendship and collaboration over the years on numerous projects here and in Canada, where he is a giant in his field. Once more, he did not let me down with his critiques of this book. A special thanks goes to Kaja Perina, editor-in-chief of Psychology Today, who took time from her busy schedule to comment on early drafts of the manuscript. Dr. Leonardo Territo receives my admiration, as well as my thanks. While finishing his 12th book, he took the time from his cramped schedule to go through this manuscript meticulously with me line by line. His vast experience working with dangerous personalities, including Ted Bundy, was extremely helpful. His foreword is his most kind. This book would not be possible without Steve Ross, director of the book division at Abrams Artists Agency. Steve is the kind of literary agent who gets things done, and he is, without a doubt, one of the most interesting people with whom to share a meal. I want to thank Alex Postman, Jennifer Levesque, and the rest of the team at Rodale Books, who have an appreciation for the welfare of others, both physically and mentally, and who, upon seeing this manuscript, immediately understood its potential to save lives. To our editors, Michael Zimmerman and Jeff Kostari, thank you for landing on this project on the run. You brought it all together. Well done. Early drafts of this work were carefully read and reread by Janice Hillary. I thank her for her insightful support and guidance. If only we could all have teachers like her. A teacher who cares about her students, even old ones like me. My gratitude goes out to Elizabeth Lee Barron at the University of Tampa's McDonald Kelsett Library, who generously assisted me with finding reference material and who, like my good friend Mark Reeser of the FBI, always makes me laugh. To Tony Ciara Pointer, who I am indebted to you once again for shaping my words and thoughts, but more important, for being inquisitive, for sharing ideas and concepts that are transformative, and for being singularly meticulous. Singularly meticulous. What a gift you have for writing and for making my task so much easier. Thank you, my friend. Also, I must thank my family here and in Europe for tolerating my absences as I struggled with writing a manuscript that was 3 times larger than what the reader will see. To my wife Thyrith, for whom I found a profound respect, I must thank you for who you are, for providing valued counsel and providing and loving support, and for your patience as I struggled to work on this book for more than a year. You are a blessing in every sense of the word who all too often has to insulate me from distractions. And last, I thank my parents who honor me by calling me their son and for having provided me a loving environment since dangerous personalities. Joe Navarro, M.A., FBI Special Agent, retired, Tampa, November 2013. I echo Joe's thanks to Steve Ross of Abrams Artist Agency, to our editors Mike Zimmerman and Jeff Costari, to the team at Rodale Books for all their efforts on behalf of this book. Thank you to Donna Munker for being the staunchest, most loving, caring friend and fellow writer anyone could have. Love and gratitude to my husband Donald for always being in my army and in my corner, for all the way we can talk about the darkest of the dark and brightest of the light. To Joe Navarro, thank you for our work together and for our many interviews and thoughtful conversations about the ways of dangerous personalities. A strange terrain you know all too well. Thank you for your tireless work on every aspect of this book, for your dedication, for your humor, and for your ferocious joy in learning and work. When you email me to say, I'm on it, I know you are on it. Finally, at the risk of sounding unserious, I am grateful that our cat Lucy was often curled soothingly within arm's reach on her fleece perch when it felt painful to write about these personalities. Tony Ciara Pointer, New York City, December 2013. Forward. When the first edition of this book was published in 2014, a reporter asked me, "Who is your intended audience?" My answer was straightforward. This book is for everyone, because all of us will be victimized at some point in our life by one or more of the 4 personality types I describe. As a former FBI Special Agent member of the elite National Security Division's Behavioral Analysis Program, and senior criminal profiler in the Tampa Division of the FBI, I learned a few things about people who are most likely to harm others. We read about major crimes perpetrated by dangerous personalities in the media, but in fact, most people who are victimized physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, or financially rarely make headlines. You yourself may have been victimized by a dangerous personality and likely never reported it. Sadly, many people suffer in silence. That is why I wrote this book. This second edition is a testament to the readers of the first edition, who found the information not only useful, but also important in validating what they had experienced. Finally, they understood the destructive nature of those individuals, so severely flawed of character that there is little likelihood they would ever change and stop hurting others. Based on reader feedback I've received over the past 3 years, the most popular and useful part of this book has been the checklists. They were designed so that the average person can assess others for pathological personality traits based on their behavior, what they do, and say each day. Tested over a decade of work while I was in the FBI, these comprehensive checklists are invaluable in identifying individuals who may be harmful or toxic, as well as dangerous. Most of us don't have access to medical professionals who can help us evaluate others 24 hours a day. This is where the checklist and other descriptive material in the book are most helpful. Because you and I make observations every day and have direct access to individuals who may harm us, we're often better positioned to identify behaviors that others may miss. With the assistance of checklists, we can determine whether we're living with, dating, working for, or managing someone who will victimize us or others. Since publication, I've received hundreds of emails, letters, and social media posts from all over the world thanking me for sharing this information and for unveiling, as one put it, that the medical profession seems to hide from the average person. From a woman who had to borrow the book from a library to review the checklist so her abusive husband would not see her, to a millionaire in South Florida who was contemplating suicide because of how his wife had treated him over the years. Readers whose painful stories drive home the sad truth and that dangerous personalities can harm anyone, anywhere, at any time. Young, old, men, women, gay, bisexual, and a housewife, a CEO, retired, active duty police officer, prison warden, senior bank managers, a dancer, a rehabilitated alcoholic, a woman cheated out of her life savings by her own grown child, and a middle aged man who finally understood why his now deceased mother treated him like the way she did from the time he was born. These and more from all walks of life have written to me about how this book offered them clarity. In particular, readers appreciated the accuracy of the checklist in describing, to a T, as many said, how toxic these individuals had been in their life. At last, someone was being honest with them about just how malignant, and destructive these personalities can be. While my original goal was to help those most vulnerable to dangerous personalities, people in abusive relationships at home or at work, something unexpected happened. After the election in 2016 of President Donald J. Trump, I began receiving queries from people as far away as Australia, and the messages usually read something like this: I bought the book for myself to help me deal with someone I know, but I just compared it to some of the things that President Trump has done, or said against the checklist, and I think he qualifies as a narcissist. A clinician even wrote to me saying that the rules of her profession prohibit her from commenting on the mental health of someone not directly under her care. But when she is asked if President Trump is a narcissist, she says, "Read Joe Navarro's book and come to your own conclusion." During my FBI career, I used these checklists to assess criminals, spies, and terrorists, as well as foreign leaders. In many ways, the book is an extension of my FBI work. It was not meant to exclude anyone from being examined, regardless of their social status, gender, religious beliefs, nationality, or political associations. It was designed to warn people about dangerous personalities based solely on their behaviors and to help them determine for themselves whether they or others might be at the risk of being victimized or severely or adversely affected. Still, I never imagined that the checklist would be used to assess a sitting U.S. president. I will admit, just as many readers of the first edition have, I too have correlated the behaviors of President Trump that I have observed directly against all four checklists: the narcissistic personality, the emotionally unstable personality, the paranoid personality, and the predator in this book, and have found President Trump to possess many of the traits associated with the narcissistic personality. I find this conclusion alarming and dangerous. That someone so flawed of character now controls the most powerful military in the known universe and can release nuclear weapons on a whim. But that is just my personal opinion based on the checklist and my 4-decade career in law enforcement. As citizens, each of us makes our own assessments of leaders and elected officials. It is our duty to conduct our own legal diligence with the same care we might exercise in picking a school, a neighborhood, or someone to care for our children. For those who are concerned, if you care about your country as much as I do, then you should do your civic duty and exercise your responsibility as an American citizen and patriot, and use the checklist to make your own assessment and see where the chips fall. That is our individual responsibility. I hope you will be honest and impartial and check off those behaviors that you have personally witnessed or noticed as they relate to the sitting president. If that is your concern, I hope you will do this with much care and diligence as you would if your daughter or son were in a relationship with someone you suspected might be toxic or dangerous. If you see from the totality of checked off items that this person is severely flawed of character, then and only then can you make your own personal decision and determine whether what you thought, didn't believe, or refused to consider may be true. It is easy to look the other way, to not care, or to be so partisan in one's political beliefs that no matter what a person in office does, it can go unchallenged, minimized, rationalized, or justified as okay. It is harder to live with the reality and legacy that we bequeath beneath that we bequeath ourselves as we look away or are indifferent. Ask the German people about how they looked away in the 1930s when the brown skirts marched through the streets of Berlin. Ask those 500,000 refugees who ignored a bearded rebel leader in the Escambray Mountains of Cuba in 1959, and then had to flee for their lives a year later. We cannot ignore those who would hurt us or others physically, psychologically, emotionally, or financially. It does not matter if we are married to them, work for them, or are governed by them. As a Cuban refugee who came to America fleeing a tyrannical megalomaniac, it has been my privilege to defend this country from enemies, both foreign and domestic. I may be limited in how I can do that, but I still feel that responsibility. In fact, we all have a responsibility to our families, neighbors, friends, and each other to warn of harm. However, and whenever it comes, by whatever ability we possess. Poet Ella Wheeler Wilcox presciently warned us to sin by silence. When we should protest, makes cowards out of men. To those who can victimize you are out there, and they are counting on most people to remain quiet, to look the other way, to be indifferent. We have a solemn responsibility as citizens to protect ourselves and each other from dangerous personalities, be they social predators masquerading as priests, husbands, battering their wives, or politicians abusing their office for personal gain. As I said, this book was intended for those victimized at home or in the workplace, and it still is. But this is also intended for those who seek to understand anyone in whom they have placed under their trust or confidence. If the original mission of this book was expanded because people are genuinely concerned about those who lead them, then I am gladdened. If this work serves to keep one or more person, group, or institution from being victimized, then I can say I have repaid my debt to the country that took me and my family in with open arms when no one else would. Joe Navarro, September 29th, 2017. Introduction. Why I wrote this book and how to use it. On June 27th, 1975, a young woman named Susan Sue Curtis went missing from an otherwise very safe college campus. She was 15 years old and attending a youth conference at Brigham University at Provo, Utah, where I was a rookie police officer. I conducted the initial investigation into her disappearance. We interviewed friends and family for clues and learned that she'd gone back to her room to clean her new braces. But when I searched her room, her toothbrush was dry. She had never made it back. We could account for some of her activity. Her lunch ticket had been used. But we were limited in what we could reconstruct. This was before cameras and ubiquitous, alright, whatever, on campuses and cell phones kept us all connected. We talked with her family. I still remember their fathomless pain and desperation. Their trauma was devastating and sad, so sad. Sue was never found, and eventually all reasonable leads were exhausted. But the mystery of her disappearance always bothered me because I had been on duty that night patrolling the campus, and somehow felt partially responsible. I kept a copy of the case file containing a large photograph of her, and for years afterwards, I would scan crowds looking for a face that even remotely resembled hers. I kept the file too, to remind me of my failure to protect that innocent soul. Years passed, and I went on to become an FBI agent. Then one day, I got a call from a Salt Lake City investigator. "There's something you should know," he told me. "We never found Sue Curtis, but we know who took her." He went on to say that a good-looking young man, had been driving around campus in a Volkswagen that night, looking for a victim. That man had finally admitted to kidnapping and killing Sue Curtis. His name was Theodore Ted Bundy, a man who would eventually confess to the murder of 35 young women in 4 different states. It's still hard to think about the almond-eyed girl with long hair whose photo I looked at day after day, whose diary I had read, whose clothing I smelled for signs of where she might have been, whose shoes I felt for moisture or dirt as I desperately looked for any possible clue to her whereabouts. It's very possible that I had seen her killer that night driving about on campus. I would have looked twice for a car at his car for not having a BYU student or faculty sticker, but many didn't that day, as there were so many visitors on campus. No illegal activity was seen or reported. It was like any other day, except that on this day there was a dangerous personality on campus, a predator and serial killer who would go on to kill many times more. BYU is one of the safest campuses in the country, yet there had been an abduction and a life taken. How had this happened? And who would do such a thing? The realization that one person can do so much damage, not just to victims, but also to their loved ones, was chilling. I was all of 22, a police officer in uniform, when I first truly understood that there are dangerous personalities on this planet, and that because of them, we can never be completely safe. I shudder to think what Sue Curtis, all of 15, was made to understand that night, alone with a predator, before she died. I am convinced that this singular event drove me years later to serve as a criminal profiler in the Tampa division of the FBI, and later in the FBI's elite National Security Division Behavioral Analysis Program. I felt compelled to understand criminal and abnormal behavior, and this objective dominated much of my bureau career. Sue Curtis disappeared on my watch. Those were the words Those were my words and initials on that investigative report. That tragic event drove my passion to seek answers from those who knew best, the criminals themselves and their victims. What I learned from them over a period of 4 decades is that there are certain personalities who hurt people the most. Over and over, they are responsible for. Sorry, to yawn. They are responsible for crime, for torment, for misery, for financial losses, as well as for loss of life. This book is about those dangerous personalities that cause us so much pain and suffering. What I learned about criminals and normal behavior and dangerous personalities, you should know also, because it may save your life. How the four personalities came together. While working for the FBI as a profiler, I began to see a pattern emerging as to the personality types who seemed to dominate our attention. These were people who were constantly making others miserable, breaking laws, engaging in risky behavior, taking advantage of or abusing others, and in general causing pain and suffering. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. Through my own efforts and with the guidance of others, I learned that there are certain personalities who will always be nasty, who are deceitful and manipulative, who derive pleasure from taking advantage of others, and who don't respect people or laws. They are exhausting emotionally and can be cruel, callous, and exploitative. And they will repeat their behavior over and over without concern for the physical or psychological damage they inflict on others. From investigating, arresting, and talking to rapists, murderers, kidnappers, bank robbers, white-collar criminals, pedophiles, and terrorists, I learned, sometimes the hard way, that dangerous personalities can be very deceptive. I just realized I just made a big mistake. I skipped an entire section. So, I'm gonna flip back to it. It's the chapter, I read the section after this one. As I just had to run down, get some water, and refresh my mind. So when I came back, I flipped to the right one, and I was like, wait. What happened? But now that we're good to go, let's pretend that didn't happen, and let's get back into it. The reality of dangerous personalities. By now we're familiar with the grim headline: lone killer walks in to an office building, classroom, campground, or other area, and seemingly without provocation, opens up with an assault rifle or other weapons, killing or maiming scores of innocent victims. And after each of these events, after the mayhem is over and the victims are buried or patched up, or the latter no doubt traumatized for life, as are their families, the question is asked, who could do something like this? And could it have been prevented? When these violent events happen, they dominate the news and preoccupy us for months. The massacres at Virginia Tech, at Columbine High School, and Sandy Hook Elementary School, and in Oslo, Norway, to name just a few. Unfortunately, these horrible mass killings happen all too often. In America alone, they occur on average 18 to 20 times per year, coming at us with almost metronomic frequency, more than one per month. Such events are almost numbing. How many were killed this time? We ask incredulously. Was it 8, 16, 26, or 77, as in Utoya, Norway, on July 22nd, 2011, at the hands of Anders Breivik, I think. I keep on mispronouncing names, I'm sorry. Yet, as staggering as those violent events are, they don't represent the full picture of who victimizes the most people. The sad truth is that for every mass killer, there are hundreds more who kill one child at a time, one date at a time, or one spouse at a time. And these events sometimes barely make it to page 6 in major newspapers. The mayhem that occurs under the radar without making the national news is the kind of crime, torment, and suffering many of us are more likely to experience. The dangerous personalities among us harm us behind closed doors at home, at church, at school, and in the office, often preying in secrecy on the unsuspecting or the trusting. And for the most part, no one finds out until it's too late. When they do make headlines, it's on those rare occasions when they get caught. There are, there are, they are responsible for many of the nearly 15,000 homicides, 4.8 million domestic assaults, 2.2 million burglaries, 354,000 robberies, and 230,000 plus sexual assaults that occur annually in the US, many of which go unreported and unpunished. Or like Bernard Madoff, they may embezzle money from the elderly or even friends for years on such a grand scale, in his case, that the economic well-being of thousands was compromised. They can go undisturbed for decades, destroying lives as the convicted child rapist Jerry Sandusky did at Pennsylvania State University. Think back to those times in your own life when someone stole something from you or took hurtful advantage of you. Perhaps your house was burglarized or your car was broken into. Perhaps you dated someone who turned out to be toxic, or you were bullied at school or at work. Perhaps you've been assaulted, mugged, or sexually abused and never reported it, or if you did, nothing came of it. Much goes on around us that is never reported, and when it is rare that those responsible are incarcerated. For 60 years, criminologists have known that fewer than 1% of criminals are ever incarcerated for their crimes. What this means for us is that most of the people who can hurt us, these dangerous personalities, will avoid official scrutiny, wreaking havoc in our lives without ever getting caught or persisting for years before they are stopped. And that's just physical harm. Not all wounds are physical. Most of the people who cause us harm will also do it emotionally, psychologically, or financially. They too are dangerous personalities because they put us at risk in their own way. How four dangerous personalities came together. While working for the FBI as a profiler, I began to see a pattern emerging as to the personality types who seem to dominate our attention. These were people who were constantly making others miserable, breaking laws, and engaging in risky behavior, taking advantage of or abusing others, and in general causing pain and suffering, not once, not twice, but repeatedly. Through my own efforts, and with the guidance of others, I learned that there are certain personalities who will always be nasty, who are deceitful and manipulative, who derive pleasure from taking advantage of others, and who don't respect people or laws. They are exhausting emotionally and can be cruel, callous, or exploitative. They will repeat their behavior over and over without concern for the physical or psychological damage they inflict on others. From investigating, arresting, and talking to rapists, murderers, kidnappers, bank robbers, white collar criminals, pedophiles, and terrorists, I learned, sometimes the hard way, that dangerous personalities can be very deceptive. They may look at and act quite normal on the surface. They may even be intelligent, interesting, charming, and attractive. But they are always dangerous. In 1995, I met Kelly Therese Warren for the first time, 30 years old. She lived in Warner Robins, Georgia, with her daughter and husband. Kelly had served in the military handling secretarial duties and had been discharged honorably after serving her tour in Germany. Her husband worked at a lumber yard, and she did various odd jobs, including babysitting and working at a convenience store. Kelly always had a smile for me and would welcome me in with a hug. What little food they had, she willingly shared, and she always made sure that to top off my glass of sweetened iced tea. She talked to me more than a dozen times over a summer, always with a smile. Kelly told me what life had been like as a U.S. Army soldier stationed in Germany and what it was like to grow up poor in the South. She was funny and cheerful and always quick to answer my questions and fill in the gaps. For nearly a year, she provided my FBI colleagues and me with information that we used to pursue a criminal. And not just a criminal, but a Soviet bloc spy. For a year, we followed Kelly's every word, every bit of information she enthusiastically volunteered, we pursued. But something wasn't right. Nothing Kelly was telling us was panning out. It took a long time to figure out because most of the leads were in Europe, not in the US. Finally, we were able to confront her with the facts. That's when we learned that not only had she lied, but that it was she who had placed her nation at risk. It was she who, in her mere 20s, at the height of the Cold War, had put all of Central Europe in danger by selling to the Soviet bloc highly classified war plans that she had typed. Kelly, with her sweet smile and sweet tea, was yet one more example of how dangerous personalities can be charming, funny, interesting, but they can also put a whole nation, or in her case, a host of nations, at risk. Kelly is serving a 25-year sentence for committing espionage. These individuals are flawed not only in personality, but also in character, that is, in morality and ethics. In essence, they can't be trusted to tell you the truth, to care about and protect you, or to keep you safe. And because of their laws, invariably their behaviors leave behind a debris field of human suffering. Over time, I came to realize that there were four personality types responsible for most of the harm we were seeing. These four dangerous personalities daily put us at risk financially, emotionally, or physically, and they are the personalities we will focus on in this book. The narcissistic personality, the emotionally unstable personality, the paranoid personality, and the predator. My intention. Dangerous personalities is my attempt to share with you what I know about those who will hurt you. Dangerous personalities are all around us. They may be your neighbors, friends, boss, date, spouse, relatives, or parent. They may be community leaders or professionals responsible for your education, money, health, or safety. And that is why we have to be particularly on guard. Note about terminology. Some readers may wonder why I choose to use non-clinical terms such as predator or emotionally unstable to describe two of the dangerous personalities in this book. This is a valid question. I wanted to use the terms that lay people can understand immediately and that would transfer easily across cultures. It would have been very easy, and perhaps beneficial for book sales, as some friends suggested, to use the term psychopath to describe the predator. Unfortunately, the term psychopath has become so overused that even some professionals use the term carelessly, when the more discerning would tell you that conduct disorder, sociopath, antisocial personality disorder, or, as the World Health Organization prefers, dissocial personality disorder, which would be more accurate or precise. The medical and mental health literature clearly differentiates between a psychopath, a sociopath, an individual with antisocial personality disorder, and an individual with conduct disorder. To label someone using those particular terms, one must be very aware of the specific criteria established by the mental health community or by researchers such as Robert Hare. As complex as this is for professionals, it is more so for the lay reader. That's why I decided to use the term predator, which encapsulates the fact that we are dealing with individuals who prey on others, to take advantage of others, and have little regard for rules or for the rights and sanctity of others. Similarly, terms such as borderline personality, histrionic, conduct disorder, or bipolar disorder are a mystery to most people not familiar with the full clinical meaning of these terms. So I use the appellation emotionally unstable to encapsulate the essence of this personality so that the average person, and that includes me, can understand. I am also aware that some psychological terms, such as borderline or histrionic, can become so highly charged with negative meanings and connotations that they stigmatize or are used pejoratively while providing little clarity as to what is at issue. For these reasons, I avoided using these terms. Narcissistic and paranoid personality were used, however, because these terms are widely understood thanks to their long pedigree in mythology and in literature. Okay, back to the story. Or book. Evil, crime, or suffering comes at us in many ways, and rarely does it wave a flag or blow a whistle to say, "Get ready, I'm coming." In fact, from my own experience as an FBI special agent, I know that criminals are incredibly adept at getting close to us so they can take advantage. Dennis Rader, also known as the BTK killer, hid in plain sight for 30 years, living in Park City, Kansas, near Wichita. Rader was a church council leader and dog catcher slash compliance officer for the city. He was also a serial killer, at least 10 victims, who liked to bind, torture, and kill, thus the BTK appellation. Something he kept secret from his wife and kids, as well as from city officials and his church for 3 decades. David Russell Williams, a decorated Canadian Forces colonel, also hid a secret from his wife and fellow officers that he was a serial rapist and killer. Or how about the scores of Catholic priests who for decades hid their crimes of child abuse under the robes of the clergy. It's cases like these that make us wonder, whom can we trust? How can we detect and avoid harm before it happens? In the end, we must rely on our own innate abilities to sense danger, or our powers of observation, and the behaviors of others that alert us that something isn't right. Sometimes the only person making the key observations that may save you is you. That may save you is you, sitting next to that odd or prickly person in a cubicle at work or behind that closed door at home. Consider the 2003 case of Ariel Castro, who held, tortured, and raped 3 girls in his house for more than a decade, more than 3,600 days. Just think about that. Within hours of his arrest, neighbors spoke to news reporters of how bewildered they were, as Castro was known as a sunny face, someone who was good with children. One neighbor who lived 2 doors down had known Castro for 22 years said, "I feel a little guilty. I should have spotted it." But what if those neighbors, family members, or his fellow musicians and band members, Castro played the guitar and sang, had been better observers? Most people, unfortunately, are simply not motivated to look closer. In fact, society frowns on meddling in other people's business. And frankly, most people simply don't know what to look for. Sadly, social blindness is the rule, not the exception. I don't want you to be victimized. I don't want you to go through what I have witnessed and what so many have suffered. I want you to have a happy, fulfilling life. But I know there are dangerous personalities out there, ever ready to torment you or take what you value. If you have any doubt, just read the newspaper, and you'll know why we have to be prepared. Invariably, a person who has been victimized later asks, "How could this happen to me? Why didn't I see the signs?" We've all experienced this, including me. While hindsight is 20/20, foresight is mostly blind. No one has taught us what to look for. We who work criminal cases know that there are almost always personality traits or behavioral clues that, to the informed, say, there are issues. Pay attention, beware, or get away. But either they weren't recognized, or people chose to ignore them. This is where dangerous personalities comes in. I want to help you anticipate when someone is going to try to take advantage of you or hurt you. Safety is our responsibility. It cannot be outsourced, and if we try to do so, we'll be disappointed. Police departments are notoriously overburdened. Mental health clinics are swamped. The courts still let too many get away. And, as already mentioned, the majority of those who do wrong rarely get caught. Thus, our safety is up to us. How nice it would be if we could just block these individuals out of our lives as easily as we do spam or pop-up messages on the internet with one click. But we can't. That means we have to be on guard. I want to share this information with you because we don't have experts at our side 24/7 to turn to and ask, what do you think? Is he dangerous? Is he a good person? Can I trust her to care for my child? Should I invest in him? Should I let her be my roommate? Does this manager have the capacity to ruin my company? Should I bring him home and let him spend the night? These decisions are our responsibility, yet few of us are prepared to assess others properly in order to answer these questions. When we fail to answer them today, we may find the sad answer on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper. Now you can take an active role in ensuring your safety. Dangerous Personalities provides you with expert advice in a simple, practical way so that you can take control of your life. I want to help you learn how to assess others for flaws of character or personality to reduce the chance that you'll be taken advantage of emotionally, psychologically, financially, or physically. Benjamin Franklin said it best. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. I would only add that an investment in this knowledge may save your life. The dangerous personality checklists. In the world where I worked, we never had the luxury of days or weeks to assess an individual. Decisions about whom to investigate, whom to focus on, to follow, question, confront, engage, or arrest had to be made quickly. After all, when you're negotiating with a kidnapper, you can't say, hang on a minute, we have to ask a committee of experts what your personality is really like so we know how to deal with you. It doesn't work that way. Real life happens in real time, and decisions have to be made in an instant. In crisis situations, our general knowledge of human behavior was critical, but was so specific but so was the specific information we gradually collected as to how these dangerous personalities behaved. In time, as I studied and talked to these individuals, as well as to experts and to victims, their key features became formalized into checklists to help me assess these individuals in real time in the high-stakes situations we confronted daily in the FBI. What only select a few FBI criminal profilers previously knew, and what I myself used repeatedly and refined over the years, I will now share with you. Chapter by chapter, I'll describe the defining traits of each of the four personalities, how they behave, how they make us feel, and where and how we may encounter them, with examples from everyday life, my own crime files, the headlines. I conclude each chapter with the dangerous personalities checklist specific to that personality type, describing key warnings and signs in plain language. The checklists include a practical, easy-to-use scoring system to help you gauge where this person's behavior fall on the spectrum from mild to moderate to severe. In other words, from irritating to toxic to dangerous. I've actually been thinking about how I was going to go about this checklist. I think I might create like some kind of document of the checklist in this book, or I can so you have that like for if you don't have the book, you can check the checklist because I will read it over at the end of the chapter, and I will try to put the information in that in like a document, and then I will post that in the description if I decide. I will hopefully by the end of this book, I will. I will. I'll have everything done. So let's just continue. The checklist will help you understand the following: the most common personality traits and behaviors that say proceed with caution. The traits, behaviors, or events that appear normal but that in fact communicate danger. What you can anticipate in the future from this individual. The possible threat level to you and those who associate with this individual. Each checklist is very specific and highly detailed, far more detailed, in fact, than those used by mental health professionals when diagnosing personality disorders. As you look at the checklists, you may wonder why they are so long. The answer is simple. Assessing for dangerous personalities is often complex and subtle. The checklists are lengthy because they need to be. Details ensure accuracy and help avoid the risk of overlooking meaningful or nuanced behaviors that the layperson may have forgotten or may not have realized are significant, but that are important in identifying a particular dangerous personality. When it comes to saving lives or keeping others safe, I have to consider what is useful to the widest readership, and also what is necessary. Just as an experienced pilot uses a lengthy pre-flight and landing checklist to ensure maximum safety for all on board, so we must use comprehensive checklists to be as careful and as precise as we can. When it comes to dangerous personalities, detail and accuracy trump brevity and ambiguity. As you read this book and use the checklist, you will notice that unlike most books on the subject, there are very few statistics. There is, in my view, a valid reason for this. When we say that this or that personality type accounts for 1 or 6 or 2.8% of the population, I believe we're doing a disservice to readers by inviting them to focus on probabilities/statistics rather than on behaviors. There's a risk that someone will say, well, I have a 96% chance of being safe, so I don't need to worry about dealing with that type of person. Many smokers delude themselves by focusing on the statistics relating to those who don't get lung cancer rather than on the behaviors and lifestyle that lead to lung cancer. This mindset is precisely what we want to avoid. All it takes is one encounter with one dangerous personality. On the street, at work, in your car, in your house, or in your bedroom, to completely ruin your life. Thus, in this book, we focus on behaviors, not on statistics or probabilities. I also know from the research, or more information referred to the 5th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, known as the DSM-5, that certain disorders are more often diagnosed or associated with a specific gender. Antisocial personality disorder, for instance, is more often diagnosed in males, while borderline personality disorder is more often diagnosed in females. These two disorders have many of the behavioral traits of the predator and the emotionally unstable personality, respectively discussed in this book. For the same reason that it's inadvisable to focus too narrowly on statistics, it would be a mistake to associate one disorder or personality type with a specific gender. We don't want to be blinded by fixating on statistics or gender bias. What we want to do is focus on behaviors. Behaviors overwhelmingly will define the dangerous personality type. An important caution. As you read this book, keep in mind that I am not a mental health professional, and this is not a diagnostic book. Clinical is diagnosis is reserved for clinicians who have spent years training in the art of science and diagnosis, using specific criteria established by the American Psychiatric Association. While professionals may find the material in this book helpful, this book is not meant to be used for diagnostic purposes. The checklists were designed as an assessment tool for those wanting to identify dangerous personalities or behaviors associated with dangerous personalities, just as we prudently assess whom to allow into our homes or whom to employ. This book and these checklists likewise help us to be more thorough in our assessments of others. This is a descriptive book about how to identify dangerous personalities through their behaviors. It's also a book on how to protect yourself and your loved ones. There are many excellent books and resources on mental illness, abnormal psychology, and personal disorders, as well as their possible causes and treatment. This isn't one of them. You should seek out those sources if that's the perspective you're looking for. This book is strictly from my perspective as a former FBI special agent who had to deal with these kinds of dangerous individuals on a frequent basis, either face to face as the target of my investigations or in consultations. My approach, therefore, is not from the healing arts. I leave that to mental health professionals. The selected resources and the bibliography offer a selection of valuable resources that draw from the healing arts, crisis centers, criminologists, law enforcement, and forensics, as well as insights from the victims themselves. I hope you'll explore these additional resources and continue to educate yourself long after you finish this book. I truly believe you're best served when you consider what many authors have to say, rather than just one. Many books explore why these personalities are the way they are. You will not find that focus here, for this reason. When someone takes pleasure in humiliating you on a daily basis, has cleaned out your bank account, has molested your child, or is choking you with a belt, does it really matter why that person is this way? The only thing that matters, because you are not a clinician or a researcher, is your safety and the well-being of those you love. During my decades in law enforcement, the more insight we had into a suspect's probability, the greater the probability we had of catching that individual or preventing further criminal acts. For example, in hostage situations, knowing whether we were dealing with someone who was primarily paranoid, a predator, a narcissist, or highly unstable could make a big difference in how we communicated with this person, how often, and by what means. It also helped us determine what actions might be taken to rescue the hostage. Knowing the individual's personality type gave us insight into the probable outcome of this situation, as personality traits often dictate the trajectory of how someone is likely to behave. Which is why we say in behavioral analysis, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. Or to quote legendary thinker on human nature, we are what we repeatedly do. Aristotle. If you seek to know the why of dangerous personalities, this is not the book for you. But if you want to know how they think and behave, if you want to protect yourself, your loved ones, or your business, then this is a good place to start. One last thought before we begin. While my training and personal philosophy dictate that everyone deserves to be treated ethically and with respect, I also believe no one has a social obligation to be victimized. Let me repeat that. No one has a social obligation to be victimized. That's why I'm writing this book. I care only about one thing: your safety and well-being. I care about you, your children, your parents, or your grandparents not becoming victims. My goal is not to scare you, but to empower you. I want to sensitize you to these personalities so you can spot them before they can hurt you or those you love, and help you distance yourself if they're causing you harm. I want you I want to help you develop your safety radar for detecting behaviors that signal caution. Be careful with this person. Slow down. Don't trust. The more we can do this as individuals, the better protected we'll be as a society. Then maybe the havoc wrought by the extremely dangerous personalities of the world can be contained long before they make headlines. If this book helps you, if this book helps you identify and protect yourself from someone who can hurt you physically, emotionally, psychologically, or financially, then I have accomplished my goal. Chapter 1. It's all about me. The narcissistic personality. Of all the labels that are carelessly bandied about, narcissist is probably one of the most overused and least understood. It's a popular term with ancient origins, the Greek myth of Narcissus, who fell in love with his reflection. Yet, what it really means can be perplexing. Many people think of a narcissist as someone who perhaps names hotels after himself or wants to be in the spotlight, maybe a character on reality TV. Certainly, plenty of people love the limelight, but the kind of narcissist we're talking about goes far and beyond self-promotion by acting in ways that are toxic and dangerous. From this point forward, I will use terms narcissist and narcissistic personality interchangeably. Narcissistic personalities care only for themselves, their needs, and their priorities. While you and I appreciate attention, the narcissist craves it and manipulates people and stimulation situations to get it. While you and I work hard to be successful, the narcissistic personality connives to succeed, and may cheat, lie. Oh wait, no, that was succeed. My mistake. To succeed and may lie, cheat, embellish the truth, or scheme to get ahead, uncaring of how others are affected. These personalities can be found in every level of our society, right up to the top, where history's grim records shows that they've started wars and exterminated populations. But they're also found in the cubicle or in the bar stool next to you, at home, on the team, in the classroom, and even in your spiritual community. Cinderella, the classic tale of the cruel stepmother and stepsisters obsessed with themselves, epitomizes the exploitative nature of narcissism. These are people who live selfishly at others' expense. The most famous version of Cinderella is the Disney one, but historically there are more than 300 variants of the tale. Apparently, many cultures have seen fit to warn us about this personality, with a good reason. Like Cinderella's stepmothers and stepsisters, these personalities see few faults in themselves and view anyone who doesn't value them as highly as they value themselves as nobodies to be denigrated or tormented. Okay. And while Walt Disney's Cinderella enjoys a magical happy ending, in real life there's no fairy godmother or prince to save us from these bullies when we're dealing with the narcissistic personality or protection. Our protection is up to us.